Sharpie and wood turning tools. Let's debunk one thing. I want to point out that this is my opinion on this topic, and so you all heard the expression rub the bevel, but what that actually means. And lately there were a lot of, well, in the last few years, a lot of sort of a misunderstanding, I believe, and the word rubbing the bevel has sort of diminished, and it was sort of replaced by floating or gliding the bevel. And I don't think actually that that's the all the correct term, I would say. I think the old-timers had it right by saying rubbing the bevel, because in order to remove the Sharpie from the steel, like you're going to see here, you have to rub at least a little bit. So I think that's the correct terminology. However, there are a few tweaks that I want to add. And again, this is my opinion on this. You see here 5 tools. 3 of them are gouges, 12 and 16 mil ball gouge, then 12 mil spindle gouge, but also a couple of scrapers, and I might add a few more during the demo. And you might be wondering, wait Tommy, how you're going to ride the bevel with a scraper? But you'll have to stick around through the video to find out. So I have here a lovely chunk of maple, and that will go on the lathe. So just throw that on, tighten it, and that's now ready for turning. Now first thing that I want to do is just mark the bevel, the primary bevel that will get in contact with the timber. So I'll just highlight that. Now throughout the videos you probably heard me say riding the bevel, and that terminology sort of stick with me, although I don't think it's maybe the best way to describe what we are actually doing on the lathe. And you might be thinking again here, wait Tom, it's pointless to mark the bevel of the scraper, but again you'll have to stick around to see. This is spindle gouge. So again, I just want to highlight what is happening when we ride the bevel or rub the bevel. So again, riding the bevel terminology sort of stick with me. Not sure why, but again, I don't think it's the best way to describe how the bevel is reacting with the timber. Now, I'm actually not that keen on floating the bevel terminology. Not so much that I disagree with it, but I don't think it sort of best describes. Now, for me, floating means, you know, you can have feather floating on the water, but you can also have a massive oil tanker floating on the water. So I don't think that best describes again what's happening with our tools when we ride the bevel or rub the bevel. So again, I'm not here to sort of disapprove that terminology, but more of actually showing what's happening and how much of the pressure I'm using, if any, to make the tools cut. Let's first spin the bowl, find the speed. I think for the start this will be okay. That's 1250 RPM. So let's see what's happening when we do a roughing cut. So not necessarily I'm riding the bevel, but more what I'm doing is just using the left wing as sort of a scraper to remove the bulk of the timber. So just nice and gently. And let's see what's happening on the bevel. You should be able to see that this a little bit of a thin strip of paint is missing, or the color is missing. So you can see I'm not riding the bevel per se, so this is just from wood passing by and the shavings and the heat that just rubbed away a little bit here. So that's not even a proper mill thick. So let's do that with the bigger gouge as well, just to confirm. So again, I close the flute at around 10 o'clock, drop the handle slightly. And you can see that works beautifully. And let's check the bevel, what's telling us. And I encourage you to try this at home so you can see what's actually happening. So again, hopefully you can see that there is a little bit of a color missing at the top of the edge here. So now let's use the same tool but slightly different orientation. So I'll stand, or the handle will be further towards the back, the tool edge will lead, and let's do a rub cut, or rubbing the bevel cut. Now I think I will have to bring the tailstock, it's slightly vibrating here at the top. Okay, let's try that again. Much better, no more vibration. I don't need my left hand in this case. All I'm doing with my right hand is just steer, or in this case I'm actually going nice and in a straight line. And let's see now what's happening with the bevel. So now you should be able to see that there is one part of the bevel missing, or the color is missing, and you can tell it's here. So when I use the push cut or shear cut, I was in this orientation, and this is where all the magic is happening. This is where the timber rubbed away the portion of the color. So hopefully that's nicely visible. Maybe pull it slightly back. So again, I don't think by just floating, even with a slightly aggressive rub, it's not easy to remove the color. You can see slightly here, but you need a little bit of a, what's the right word I'm looking for, tension or weight, maybe just weight of the tool and your right hand to remove the paint or the color, and still you have a beautiful control on the timber. So nothing is happening that we have a big tool lost control, so like bouncing around or anything like that. So just to prove that, again, I'll use smaller gouge, nice and gentle start. Again, I don't need my left hand. All the magic is happening with the right hand, and my left hand in this case can be used to collect shavings. Here I'm getting a little over tool rest, so I'll bring it around again. Find a smooth area and continue on. And let's see what's happening with the bevel on the smaller gouge. Just clean it up so it's not dusty. So again, hopefully you can see that this area, and when I bring that up to the edge, that's this little bit of steel is in contact with the timber. So when you're reshaping your gouge, it's not always necessary, let's say for the final cut, it's not always necessary to sharpen all the bevel all the way around, because if you're doing only push cuts, you can see we're only using partially the part of the nose of the gouge. And by the way, this is asymmetric grind. So I can play around a little bit and move the bevel around. So I'll just pick up the cut, and I can do a shear cut with the right wing. like so. So open up the gouge a little bit more. And we'll see what's happening with the bevel now, where we are rubbing. So that little tweak with my right hand, I exposed a little bit of a fresher edge, a little bit more towards the right wing. That's the word I'm looking for. So I was using this portion now in total, this area of the gouge. So again, how much of the pressure I'm using? Very, very little, but you still have to engage the steel onto the wood. So you can see very light touch. And again, once I have it engaged in the timber, I really don't need my left hand in this case. Doesn't matter the volume of the cut. And nice and gently to the top. And you'll see that my gouge doesn't suddenly burst through. So that's the pressure I'm using. So it's not fighting. It's not a wrestling match. So you're not trying to wrestle the ball and the tool. You're just trying to use it as gracefully as you can. You saw when I used the right wing on the top of the ball. Again, we have a similar situation as with a roughing cut without rubbing the bevel. You can see what portion of the edge I used. So here what I'll do is just smooth out this area first. Still a little bit of harmonic, but this should be okay. Most of the ball is now nice and true. So again, I'll find the bevel. So that's for me rubbing, and that's, I'm not pushing hard into the wood to leave a burnish mark, like burned portion, but just nice glide like so, finding the cut. So that's my cut, and I can proceed forward. And I'll use the fresh edge. Well, not fresh edge, but this right wing hasn't been used, so should be a little bit better indicator of what I'm using. Nice and gentle through center. So let's see now what happened to our edge here. So again, I've used slightly more of this portion of the bevel, the nose, and you can see this area of the wing, of the right wing, so this part here, just remove the excess, and the nose here gives our nicely finished surface on the bottom. So let's do a little shaping. I'll just bring a bigger tool rest. I just put a little bit more shape into the ball because there is a lot of harmonic here, because the top is very uneven, although it doesn't appear to be, but it is slightly. So that's why I have that harmonics without tailstock. So again, if your technique is correct, you should be able to go around the ball with only using your right hand. Although again, I'm not advising you to do so, but this is just to prove a point that although the terminology rubbing the bevel seems harsh, you're actually, I think it's the best correct terminology describing what's happening and how much of the pressure you're actually putting on the on the wood. Now, just to show you a spindle gouge with the task of getting the tenon done. So I drop the handle down, I position the bevel where I want to go, and I lift the handle in. Once I'm in the corner, I open it ever so slightly and drag across like so. So I have a really nice and clean tenon. Do that again. And I want to show you where we use the bevel on the spindle gouge. So again, hopefully you should be able to see the area where we rubbed away the color on the gouge, and also right here at the top where we use this area of the wing, the left wing, as just to remove the bulk of the foot here. And also if I do a push cut down to the center, just clean this, find the bevel, nice and gently. Now you should be able to see a whole stripe here of missing color, because now we travel a longer distance. This was just maybe half of the bevel length the tenon is. This is the length of the tenon, so that's only this area rubbed away. But we traveled now and engaged all the bevel. That's why here everything is rubbed away. Okay, so now the fun bit. Can we ride the bevel with scraper? And the answer is yes, you can. And I'll show you multiple options here. Actually, first let's start with the SPUR point scraper. So you can see I've marked the bevel. I position the tool rest where it suits my position. I'll drop the handle down. So now nothing happens. I'll rotate the edge into the wood and I'll get a shaving. And if I go around nicely, for the moment I'll only use one portion just to show you where it's rubbing away. So hopefully you should be able to see this little bit is what's rubbing, or what I'm using, versus the traditional way of using scraper. And nothing wrong with that. There is just different applications. So this is the more common, and I'll use the lower edge just to show you the difference. This is more common way of using scraper. So now we're actually scraping the wood. The previous method was more cutting the timber, if anything else. So hopefully you should be able to see only a thin bit of a paint is missing in this lower section, but here you can see I've rubbed away most of the color. So let's do that again. So again, this is riding the bevel, not something that I recommend, especially if you're just starting out. This can be a really dangerous situation to get yourself into with standard scrapers. So what I'm trying to do is having the edge at around 45 degrees of this timber coming down, and also what I'm trying to do is not to point it up like this. This will be a massive catch, instant catch, and yeah, you don't want to do that. But in this case I can get away with rubbing the bevel. So again, nothing happens. So I'm rubbing the lower area, this dirty portion here. So I can do that at the nose a little bit better. But now I'll rotate it with my right hand a little bit to the left, and now I'm engaging the cutting edge. And it's a little bit different shaving, as hopefully you can see. Again, it looks like a shear cut, a little bit different shear cut with the gouge. But the surface, as you'll see, is pretty darn good. Again, we are cutting the surface, and it's really nicely polished as well. So that is your sort of a telltale sign that we are not scraping as such. And just to show you again, what's happening with the bevel. So you can see here where we use towards the nose a little bit more of the bevel here. So hopefully that gives a little different view of how you can also use a spear point scraper. Again, use it first or master it, let's say, by just using it as a scraper. That's its first intention. Using it as a cutting tool, that's a little bit different area, and again, don't try it at home if you're not certain what or how to do it. So again, I can still present the edge at a really nice steep angle and have a really good surface without engaging the bevel. The surface won't be as polished. As you can see, it's slightly muted or matte appearance, but there is no tear out whatsoever. And again, there won't be any change in the bevel color missing here, because I've used it as a scraper, which means I've used the burr on the top. So only a little bit of a, as you can see here, a little bit of a color is missing. So that was a spear point scraper. So let's see shear scraper. I'll bring the tool rest slightly higher. Again, do not try this at home if you're not certain how to do this. So try to watch the shavings, what's happening. Well, these are long ribbons of shavings. You can see the color already here. Here you have to be really careful how to present it, because much like with the skew, if I slightly over rotate it, it will be a massive catch. Again, really good shine on the timber. And just to show you which edge part I've used, it's this area here. Again, it's much easier to use refiner or shear scraper as a scraper, like so. It won't be polished surface, but nevertheless it will be a nice clean surface. As you can see, actually a little bit of torn grain here. I need to go slightly less aggressive. So just let the timber come down to that edge. Now I'm deliberately using the more towards the right side just to show you the differences. So again, here I'm only engaging that burr on top. I'm not interacting with the bevel. And that's perfectly sandable surface, as you can see. So just to show you, there's a lot of dust. So I've used this area to scrape, and you can see only that top area is missing the color. And again, this is rubbing the bevel. Nice sharp edge on the scraper here, as you can see all the way around. And what I'm going to do again is just paint that primary bevel. Again, nothing happens. I readjust the body to find the bevel and the tool itself, and I'll show you the shavings what are coming away from the board. Do that again. There we go. So these are the shavings I'm getting from that cut. Again, it's a really nice and smooth surface here. There is again rubbing the bevel here, as you can see, and just to show you the bevel itself, where we rubbed away the color, as you can see here. So that's the portion I've used. Again, we can use this as a regular scraper, like so. I'll use the entire edge. Just so you can see where it rubbed away the color. So again, only the thin stripe towards the top edge is removed when we are using it as a scraper, which is again intended use for it. Let's see. Shear scrape away this portion, and again I'll do nice towards the center. So let's do a push cut on the side here. Again, faint of heart should skip to another video. So again, here you can tell immediately different sort of a shine on the cut. A little bit of a vibration here, so let's do that again. Really nice and light cut. This is really light tool. I slow down where the vibration is. And I'll show you the shavings, which are really something. Not so much common shaving, but when you shear scrape with or shear cut rather, with the scraper, it's slightly different surface. Hopefully the camera will pick it up. So that's our surface, and again we used this portion of the bevel here. So again we sort of used scraper as a gouge in this situation. It can be done, but if you do present it a little bit in the wrong way, then it will be a massive dangerous catch. So as you saw, I used it like that, but if I slightly over rotate it, it will catch the top corner here, right top corner, and there is a gap here, and it will just dig it in and drop it beneath the tool rest. So really not something to do if you're not certain how to do it. So first what I'll do is just quickly do some sort of an inside curve. It won't be, this isn't a finished bowl, I'll finish this later. So again, I'll use a bowl gouge to clean up the top here. Again, I'm using the left wing, this portion here. As you can see, only the top towards the edge is used, just to clean up this area. Now I can ride the bevel or rub the bevel nice and gently. Towards the center, and that's really nice and smooth surface. So again, I'll just quickly rough this out. Okay, so that's some sort of a bowl shape on the inside. And what I'm going to do is just darken the bevel again, put the color on, so you can see on the inside which portion of the edge we are using. So let's do it one more time. I'll do it one more time just to show you how much of the pressure is used. So again, I can let go of my left hand. The bevel is in control. I may need at some point a little bit of a downward pressure just to stabilize it. And that's it, because there is an overhang here, so a little bit of weight is all that it needs. Again, the surface will be really good. You can see the marker on the inside, but let's check out our bevel. So this is the area that we used on the inside. So pretty similar to on the outside. On the outside it was more towards my left. In this case it's right on the gouge, so more towards the right wing, but on the inside it's more of a shear cut towards sorry, more towards the left wing, this wing here. Let's do this again with our smaller ball gouge. You can see with the small bevel. So again, I'll just bring the tool rest slightly more comfortable position. Nice and gently. Towards the center. With that small bevel, the inside is pretty much pristine. As you hopefully can see, that you can start sanding with 240 grit without any issue. And let's just see what part of the edge we used on the inside. And again, it's more towards the left wing this time on the inside, and on the outside it was more towards the right wing. Again, I'm saying the right wing in this case, but more towards the left. I know it's confusing, but nevertheless, hopefully you can see where the color is missing. That's the important bit. Now the fun part. Let's use a scraper on the inside as a shear cut, like so. Again, I'll just darken the bevel, and what I'm going to do is just hold the top of the scraper, so that will remove the burr and make the edge really nice and sharp, like so. Again, not all for a faint of heart. It's not easy to start the cut, because I can't, if I engage a little bit towards the left, I will cut the upper portion, and again it will be bang over. So what I can do is start on the inside slightly. There we go. And shavings are these. That's really good. The bevel is slightly too long, that's why there is a little rub of the bevel mark here. So what I'm going to do is just remove that a little bit more. Okay, so hopefully you can see this is secondary bevel. Now the primary bevel is a little bit shorter, and you can see where I use the edge on the inside. I'll do that again just to show you. And let's start from the opening. I'll be gentle. It's not easy to start the cut. Okay, that's pretty good surface. Look at the shine on it. And again, just to show you the portion that I've used, it's slightly different this time because I've had an entry cut, and for the entry cut I had to keep it more vertical just to get it in first. Then I could open it ever so slightly to get a better shaving, but hopefully you can see where we rubbed away. Now again, I'll darken the bevel and I'll show you one more time close up This is quite interesting, I believe, for most of you, because it's not seen before, I believe, at least. Line up with the bevel where you want to go. Whoop. There we go. This is extreme shear angle. There we go. Again, hopefully you can see that's really shiny interior, and just to prove how good it is, I'm just going to sand it with 320 grit. So 320 grit, use a fresh piece. Again, this is not a way to use a scraper on the inside. It can be done, but it's not probably the best way to use a tool on the inside. Again, that's inside of a small, let's say, bowl in this case, done with a scraper. Grab a scraper. A nice light touch. The touch I'm using, that's a, I think, good analogy. The touch I'm using with the scraper is the similar force I'm using to rub the bevel. Hope that makes sense. Really nice and light. You'll see that's, again, a really decent surface. 240 grit might be used, as you can see. So some of the methods that I've shown in this video sort of proves the point that something can be done, or if it can be done, that doesn't mean that it's the most or the best way to do it. So as you saw, shear cut with a scraper, although it can be done, and nothing wrong with that if you know how to use it. Sometimes it can lead to a major disaster if you're not certain how to present. So everything is sort of, especially if you're just starting out, you have to understand how the timber and the tool will react in a different angle, different situations. So use the scrapers as scrapers. You don't have to engage the bevel in order to have a good surface. It's more about the pressure you're using and having a nice sharp edge for your scrapers. For the gouges, as you saw, you don't need a whole lot of pressure to have it nicely engaged and cut, and you basically you can use only your right hand for the cutting operation. Now again, for my English, for my understanding of English, having the terminology of riding the bevel or rub the bevel is far better understanding or explanation, especially if I'm sharing this info with somebody else in my shop, let's say. I think I can better explain what is happening. And again, it's all about how much pressure you're using, and rubbing something, I think that's the good sort of pressure indicated. So you want to rub something, if you push too hard to rub, then you'll have a burn a fingertip. So a little bit of rub pressure, and I think that's the correct pressure that we use for turning. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If nothing else, you saw something that is not shown every day, using scrapers for cutting tools. So thank you for watching, and see you next time.